Greetings and salutations, all you absolutely fantastic individuals in his League Unlock. We are back, Eric and Mark, here with you beauties. A little post-Canada Day Thanksgiving over here, which means we missed a full recap for the craziness that was the finale of the Swiss stage, but now we're left just picking up the pieces, trying to understand what happened, and first and foremost now, 2 years under the belt of this new Swiss stage format, and across the board, I think us and most people say it's been a success, a massive improvement over previous iterations of Worlds formats. The only thing is, of course, the massive swings of RNG, and it happens at every stage of this draw, basically. You know, we're doing a draw after every single day, and all you have to do is look at some of the opponents, looking at you, North America, for a second straight year, where you've had maybe an easy road to potentially get to quarterfinals, and then you look at other squads playing champions across the board, and it's heavily skewed one way or another.
Fresh off of Thanksgiving, I'm thankful for what the Swiss stage provides. You know, it gives us a lot of drama, a lot of excitement. It gets rid of, these matches where you're going, oh, that one doesn't matter whatsoever on the day. Move on through those type of situations. We don't have that anymore. What you do have is a little bit more of heavy-handed RNG sometimes with this format. And it's one of these ones where I think we're going to have to take a heavy examination at it to try and tweak, try and find the best possible Swiss stage format for next year. Because yes, the second year in a row, we have seen the LCS get incredibly soft landings compared to other regions when you're talking about where these draws have gone through. And that's not, there's some conspiracy. Mark Z's got, behind the ear and whispering into the end and tell them, get the LCS. It's not how that works type of situation. It is simply just an acknowledgement of the format and how things can play out, and truly just how much RNG plays into the factor of what is possible for these teams, for these regions after that first game of the Swiss stage, because there is slight protection, small little stipulations in that first round matchups. But once you get out of there, those protections are gone. And as soon as you have teams at 1-0, 0-1, all these type of things, it gets even more complicated. And that RNG really takes over on who you're getting from the draw.
Yeah, you can't keep up these limitations of you can't have domestic matchups, you can't play the same team twice, and you're just running out of teams. There's too many limits going on there, and it becomes so hard to even grade. You look at the 2-0 squads this year, you had D+ in the same category as somebody like Hanwha and Gen G, and then D+ got there by beating two Western teams, and all of a sudden you see the matchup against LPL teams 3 times in a row, and what happens? They get smacked.
It's just an unfortunate reality, again, as we switch in and lose and move through the different formats that we've gone through, that there is going to be that level of just randomness, and that's going to exist, and someone's going to have to get the easy one, and someone's going to have to bite the bullet and get the tough opponent type of situation. It just feels like after a second year of Swiss stage and another very heavy dosage of that, I think a lot of people are starting to raise their eyebrows a little bit and say, well, maybe we take another look at this thing, another, a tweak and chisel away at it to try and get the proper structure we want.
But the other side, it's hard to think of a solution, even with tinkering with this main format. And I think everyone loved these draws because they're happening so frequently. Even if your team or your region gets completely hosed, the sheer volatility of these draws almost made it more exciting.
That's going to be a tough sell, I think, to G2 fans, but I think there is some argument to talk about with you look at how they got to last year with their 2-0 positioning and what those draws were for them and how good it was in that situation. And then, of course, the complete opposite side of the table and other hand here this year at Worlds. Going to be a tough sell, but the drama, the excitement of every single match, of every single day, you're absolutely not reaching this with a lot of other formats, especially the old format that we had with what we went through to get these type of excitement, this type of storyline, this type of on the line, you got to deliver, didn't exist in the prior format. So I think that the Swiss stage is still delivering on a lot of the positive factors that we want. it's just coming through that I think a lot of people are starting to see maybe a wart or two with the system as well.
And I think, you look at play-ins leading into this, and maybe, okay, 100 Thieves, you maybe put in Overpain Gaming if things go according to plan. But aside from Pain, like GAM had a huge impact on the main stage, whether or not it was eliminating squads that you weren't expecting or pushing certain LCS Western teams to the absolute brink. They fully showcased, both them and PSG, that they can compete, which is kind of what we knew coming into this, but it makes the play-in stage that much more relevant and have such an impact on Swiss.
I think especially as we move towards the Americas type of format for the LCS, we've already seen this go on in other regions with the LJL joining the PCS soon next year. Hey, slap right on in the VCS joining that situation soon enough. And Levi was actually talking about it, the way that they played GAM at this event. He's going to be taking that back home, and they're taking it that, you know what, step on when we go into that next level of competition, the PCS, we get to challenge PSG, all these type of things. And then we should be on an even playing field with the LEC, the LCS. That type of move up, that type of level up for a region is something to keep track of. Levi, of course, knows it better than anybody else, being at the heart of all those plays for the VCS.
Yeah, I'd be sweating if I'm, especially the LCS and LEC, heading into 2025 with these tier 2 regions most likely leveling up to an even higher level. I'm sweating a little bit more if I'm the LEC after this World Championship. And first and foremost, we got to touch, a couple squads. We're going to say their farewell, give a full grade for the two Western powerhouses. But I've seen a lot of G2 slander after this World Championship. And if you are a fan of European League of Legends, of the LEC, you should be nothing but proud and excited about the performance that G2 put. We've kind of alluded to it. Absolutely insane draw throughout the tournament for this squad. You're talking about the LCK number 1 seed, who they were in a 40-minute banger. 1 or 2 team fights go a different way. They're winning that set. They match up against the defending world champions in T1, who they play an incredibly insane 3-inhib down game 2 against T1, almost force a game 3, and then this incredibly competitive 3-game set against the number 1 seed from the LPL, who again, they were one Baron call away from maybe taking that game. I know losing in that fashion is heartbreaking, but the fact that G2 were competitive with the very best teams at that tournament, you should be proud.
And let's, number one, give them credit in that BLG series and acknowledge that it was a real series. It really did go down to the wire. You had all these type of moments, tense moments, big plays, all these type of things.
Cheese picks not even necessary.
And remember, this is a G2 that was 0-9 against BLG in scrims at that point, heading into that day on the event. Again, really got to give them some credit on the courage that they showed into that matchup and how they performed in that. It's difficult because you're still the loser. It still is the same result when you look back to last year and the disappointment that you had, given how great the run started out. And the expectations are always going to be the same for a G2 to show dominance, to be that leader of the West, to challenge against some of these top teams in the LCK, in the LPL. When you examine this year, I think you can still find some signs of that. It's not necessarily a dramatic improvement and thing where you're impressed about it, but it certainly was a good enough showing, I think, for me. When you're looking at all these players, there absolutely is a couple head scratch question marks. That's just the nature of the territory. But when you talk about the level of competition that they had to go up against, that they were drawn into in these situations and how they dealt with them, I think that anyone coming away with this one, trash talking G2 has the wrong perspective on things.
And again, it's I know it's literally the same exit as last year, going out against BLG in the final round, but you're feeling completely different about G2 this year. And I know for the players in particular, it's tough. You've heard, I've seen a lot of interviews, especially the one with Mickey, saying there was nothing positive from this year. We haven't learned anything. And that, to me, I know that's probably a heat of the moment emotional reaction out of him, but that to me speaks to the region of Europe as a whole, because this team won all four titles this year in the LEC, and we're so close to a top 8 performance at Worlds, top 4 at MSI, and you've got guys on the organization, on the team saying, what a down year. Most EU organizations couldn't dream of a year that successful.
It's one of these, perspective type of things. And again, it's going to be hard to have that in the moment and in the heat of the moment, given all the things that have played out and the emotions that will be there for G2. But it is a feeling that I can understand and relate with when we've, been tracking the LEC and you've been tracking the success of G2 as an organization. You feel like after the last 2 years, the results that have come through, there is that lingering question that enters the mind of, is this as high as you can go? Is this as far as you can reach as that top team in the LEC? And then there's also that second question that butts up against it going, look, we're doing all we can to push like this. Anybody else want to step up, want to join us on this platform? No, nobody from the LEC. Fnatic gets close every now and then, gets stage fright. BDS gets up there, and then Adam wets his pants, and then they got to go back to the changing classroom type of thing. This is crazy when we look at the LEC and to look at all these hopes, all that pressure just on G2. I think that it's a whole ecosystem thing that we got to look at in this situation. If you're coming away from this Worlds and you're really just laying down the pressure, laying in on the hate onto G2, that ain't the way from what we have seen from the rest of Europe, I think, at this point, where you need to be directing that heated stick.
We just highlighted all these incredible matchups against top teams, how close G2 was. Fnatic's floundering against Weibo. MDK's getting eliminated by GAM, and these are your second and third best teams from a region. This is now probably 2 full years where you're talking about, the overall level of the LEC, and we're talking about G2 used to drag up the rest of the competition to their level, but nobody has gotten close to matching them, and that, how are they supposed to train? How are they supposed to improve domestically when there's no real test for them within their own region? And I know we probably won't get these same starting 5 again for G2. Maybe them being spread out, some of them in EU, will help prop things up, but the region as a whole needs to step up.
Yeah, the rumors, Yike and Mickey have been allowed to, talk to other teams at this type of point, which, I mean, pretty much right after Worlds type of situation. That is a very clear indication the team is looking to move on, looking to make changes in that one. From what I'm also hearing is, again, a lot of these teams at Worlds that then, okay, this is where we're going from this point onwards type of thing. You're behind the 8 ball. Everybody that's not been at Worlds has already been laying down the groundwork on a lot of these type of things, behind the deals, all these type of situations. So that's something that we're seeing with G2. But it's kind of crazy, again, that you look at it and what you see in all these other regions. The LCK, of course, we've had T1 be that dominant figure for so long, challenged, the telecom wars. And then here comes Gen G, now rising up and getting all these championships. And then Hanwha Life rises up and is another challenger for that type of situation. And then, heck, even in the LPL, it seems every other year we're talking about another great elite dominant team. It's top esports, it's JDG the next year, it's BLG this
whichever
year.
Team Night is on. Yeah.
Whichever Team Night is on. And not to mention, all those other teams still hang around that top area. Maybe they're not the ultra elite dog this year, but they're still in the top 5. They're still competing, all these type of things. And you go to the LEC, and it's a little bit different of a story where Fnatic kind of hangs around there. BDS has been a little bit up there at times, but then it's a rotating cast, and nobody is reaching the heights they got to reach in order to put some actual pressure, some actual heat on the seats of G2. Got to see a level up from the rest of the LEC. We've thought we were getting it a couple of times throughout this G2 dynasty, but I think right now the checkpoint, the health is not so good.
It's always a team levels up. SK starts 8-1 in round robin. You're feeling great. They flounder in playoffs. BDS starts their playoff run. They get a big upset. They're getting reverse swept. Fnatic's blowing 3 straight leads in the finals. It's always coming up short, even domestically, and then that translates over to the world stage as well. So don't be mad at G2. If you're an EU fan, be thankful for G2 that they not only gave you some of the most exciting games of the World Championship so far, but they can go toe-to-toe with the very best on the planet when it comes to this World Championship. The squad you might be a little more disappointed in from the West is one team Liquid, and I know they weren't the top seed from the LCS coming in, but most people had them as that 1A, 1B there with FlyQuest. They're at 7-0 in the regular season. People were saying, is this the best LCS team of all time? They were having that conversation. I think you and I both said, pump the brakes a little bit on that one, guys. But then you translate that to having a much easier schedule than G2 did at this Worlds. I know they played some LPL teams, but they could have gotten to top 8 by beating Pain, GAM, and FlyQuest, which is about as easy a road as you could get. But the problem for them is close, behind at times against Pain, got smashed by GAM in a game, and their 2 FlyQuest losses, they weren't close.
And we both know that there is a massive difference between getting LNG and Weibo Gaming and getting T1 and BLG. We all know that. There's no, or hell, even throwing a Gen G in that situation type of one to talk about, to even add it to on the G2 side. Different situation, and again, disappointment from the LCS and Team Liquid. This was a year where we saw so much growth, and it is one of those ones where you knew that it was measurable. You saw it in these individual players and the statistics, the eyeball test, the results, the awards that were picked up by this team, and you still end up with a disappointing classic Team Liquid finish at the end for this run at Worlds. You individually can look at a lot of the players. I think Impact, a disappointment at Worlds after having arguably his best year since ever, coming over to the LCS and being that mainstay. Absolutely nothing positive to say about what he had going on at this event. And I think a real one of these moments again where there was that challenge, there was that examination of past performances and going, all right, gotta deliver on this one with the team at this moment. And there was nothing delivered but doggy duty on your front doorstep from Mr. APA, a change in the meta really showed in what he had to utilize and what he was doing. I know there are rumors that the Kled really was working out as this, interesting angle into some of these champions coming through, and well, the Kled got behind in that chance that we saw.
I feel like they tunneled on that Kled pick. Said we've got the counter to Yone. We need to do something spicy when our backs are against the wall. We saw the new work for FlyQuest. We've got this in line. We're going for it.
And you had in that mid lane early, trying to make sure that you get that kill. And the big problem is, well, on the other side, you got someone that can step up, that can deliver in these big moments. Inspired, and he certainly did that in that series against Team Liquid, really put that pressure on them. And then even you look at the bottom lane of Jan and Core JJ, I think they had their moments where they were looking good, they were having that contribution, and then at the end of the day, it just isn't enough. It crumbles in the face of their LCS opposition on the other side in Masu and Busia.
It really feels like the number one thing with Team Liquid at this tournament. Obviously, we don't know how scrims were going, but it felt like the confidence wasn't there, even from what we saw at MSI and EWC, where it felt like you could tell they believed in themselves, that they could go toe-to-toe against some of these best teams in the world, whether it's in laning or how many times were we highlighting the macro of Team Liquid? We never see LCS teams do this, and you never saw that confidence, that decisiveness. We saw all the behind the scenes with Spawn. Even he's like, what are you guys doing? This isn't how you've played all year.
And I think you saw a little bit of that in some of the drafts and some of the prioritization that came through towards the end, going to that Tristana, right? Moving into that mid lane ADC and realizing that, again, a lot of the success, a lot of this run this year for Team Liquid came through when we were rolling through double marksman, double ADCs in your composition, one in the mid lane, one in the bottom lane, hell, one in the top lane even type of situation. And what that allowed is that pace, that change of damage in all these situations for Team Liquid. As soon as that's not on the table, as soon as the macro is different, the timings, what you're capable of pushing is going to be different in a composition without two marksmen, without two ADC machine guns rolling on through. Things were different for Team Liquid, and they were absolutely not able to adapt strong enough or quick enough at this event to change that around.
And listen, there were still positives. You had this great speech Spawn gives them after game one against GAMP. They completely turned it around and looked like a different team. They had leads. They did use some of that macro, and they looked like an LCS where they were dominating against both LNG and Weibo. But then there were the moments where They have to figure out what to do next. They see they're in their driver's seat. They're in control, and they fumble the ball. They have a terrible Baron. They're just whiffing flashes into walls. It really felt like the theme we're used to seeing with LCS teams on the international stage, and that's just nerves.
Yeah, and it's rather unfortunate that it even comes through with the Team Liquid situation, because this is about as practice and as experienced on a big time stage, a level up from just the LCS closet studio or whatever. We've seen this from Team Liquid. They've gone to MSI, they've been to EWC. This has been the trajectory for them, that they've been and should be more comfortable in these type of environments, these type of situations, this type of pressure. And it clearly was not the case in these big moments against these teams in the LPL that we saw. LNG and Weibo put both of those games up, put G2 in those winning positions in either of those games, able to close out. No question in my mind from that point on. Absolutely, nerves came into play through with this one. And it's one of those questions now where, again, are you going to be able to turn this, scar tissue into anything positive in the future? Are you able to use this as, okay, well, I know what it's like to, crumble under the pressure. I'm feeling good. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to get my performance through. Or is this going to be a worrying trend for these young, talented players in North America and APA and Yon on this Team Liquid roster?
And we know LCS tradition, unlikely all 5 of these guys will be on the Team Liquid squad heading into next year. Heck, even if they had made top 8, I feel like it's just a given heading into this budget-reduced 2025 that in the LCS we're going to see sweeping changes. If G2 is breaking up this core 5, you're going to see big changes in the LEC. If T1, it doesn't matter if they win Worlds again, there's no shot they're keeping all 5 of these guys. So it feels like this offseason is going to be absolute lunacy in terms of how many free agents are going to be around across not just one region, but basically all 4 of the major regions. But we still got the top 8 to get through at the World Championship. We'll preview in detail all 4 quarterfinal matchups and why FlyQuest should actually be the favorites against Gen G. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you beauties. Thanks for hanging out, and we will catch you on that flippity flip.